I'm going to take you through my top 10 books of 2025, the ones that moved me. These are no particular order other than that by the emotion that comes. Huge detective here. This is Adam Rose delivering one of those compelling murder mystery stories about this world where these 300-foot titans have risen up from the ground and have taken over, and they essentially have occupied Australia, and all the Australians have moved out to the United States, and they live in that world, and they're nearly immortal, and one of them is killed, and a human detective teams up with one of these huges to go and figure this out. There's somebody who's in a mental asylum, and he imagines that he's somehow a huge when really he's a normal-sized human, and he has insight on this murder that's taken place. There's this huge skeleton that's floating in space that's on a crash course towards Earth. It's full of human drama and an interesting idea of a world where giants live among humans and how that would be resolved. It's moving. I highly recommend this one here. My hero trade, Matt Kite, Dave Latham. This is like a dream come true, this combo, right? You get his incredible black and white, very gringy, so indie comic feel to his art that I love about David Latham, set in this world where superheroes have become a commodity. They're getting killed off, and people are then chopping up their bones and snorting them like they're drugs, selling their heart and eating it on the black market. All kinds of crazy mayhem. And there is this group of people that work for the government that try to manage these superheroes, and you learn all these dark, twisted tales of these behind-the-scenes life of these superheroes. And this is all set in an anthology style, set in the same world, but each chapter is its own new story with its own new characters, told in only the way people like Latham and Kind can really do it here. The Moon is following us. Daniel Warren Johnson, Riley Rossmo, an amazing combo. They both would work on these pages, all done traditionally. So they'd be mailing pages back and forth. Riley was telling the story of the dream world, and Daniel Warren Johnson was telling the story in the real world. As you can see here, there's some of the real world pages. And then we get into the fantasy world that Riley is doing. What's happened is we have this couple with this young daughter who has fallen asleep, and she has some sort of disease, or at least they believe that they can't figure out, and she's not waking up from this coma, and they've got to slip into her dreams. Think Inception. They're slipping into her dreams, and they've got to defeat the monsters that are keeping her asleep so she can come back and wake up and come back into their world. This puts their parents in a place where it tries their relationship. They have to overcome crazy obstacles, make nefarious deals, face the nightmares inside this girl's mind, the dream inside this little girl's mind. And what's so cool about it is you can see things from her bedroom and from her normal life leak into her dreams and her nightmares, and that then all gets to play out, and the parents are interacting with that. And it's a fantastical world full of the deep heart that you'd expect from Daniel Warren Johnson, and then this wildly crazy art where you have a shark's head at the end of a pole, and that's the mom's weapon, right? You can see this is the mom here, this is the dad here in their alter ego fantasy world. Another one that totally moved me was Fish Flies by Jeff Lemire. He's one of the great creators of our time. I don't think there's any doubt about that. He has this very unique signature art style, and it's set in a small town like all of his stories, where there is once a year, there is a season where these flies come in and they all die by the thousands, painting the town with these little crusted insects. And on that night, a burglar is on the run, ends up killing a young boy accidentally, and he then becomes this monster. The flies sort of consume him and make him this monster. This burglar having to pay penance. He partners up with this young teenage girl who's got a drunk father, and she is struggling with her identity. She's got a runny nose. People at school make fun of her, and she's the outcast, and she teams up with the thing that's outcast even more than her, and he can't talk. He can only nod and point, and it's their interaction is this beautiful relationship that feels very much of mice and men like. And in town, they're trying to discover what's happened. Where did this murderer go? Killed this young boy. There's all kinds of treachery and old feelings and secrets of this town that need to come forth. And there's this detective here who's trying to uncover it. You have this girl who's trying to figure out who she is, and she's coming of age with this big crazy monster. It's a heartwarming story. It's also quite violent and dark in some places. Something that must be experienced. Athanasia. This is a story, Krauss and Danny. Now, Danny is a Greek artist. I met her actually at New York Comic Con. She signed my copy of it. She's such a champion. But Daniel Krauss and her teamed up to tell this original graphic novel, something I picked randomly off the shelf from Vault Comics, who I love. And I just went for it, made the swing, and they delivered. Look at her amazing art. I love her art style. It's full of all this emotion, highly evocative. It's about a family who runs a cemetery, and it's been passed down to generation. And in this cemetery is where they bury superheroes. and their blood gets into the soil, as you can see here, and it seeps down into the soil, and sometimes it gets into the people who run the cemetery, and it gives them powers, and it affects them, makes them go a little crazy. And this teenage girl who doesn't want to carry on the family tradition gets infected by this. She doesn't know what to do. People start getting killed. She's trying to come of age. She's got these powers. She's got struggling with family identity, all set in the backdrop of the superhero cemetery. Amazing, amazing storytelling. Nothing quite like it. Absolute Martian Manhunter, Dennis Camp, Javier Rodriguez, two of the great creators, teamed up in a story that moved me completely. This is a tale of an FBI agent, John, who gets infected with the Martian Manhunter, who lives inside of his head. And because he lives inside of his head, he now sees and feels and hears the world in all these crazy colors. And Javier did such a great job, both the line art and the color art. And he starts to unravel all these horrific crimes that are going on in the city. Suicide bombers, mass shooters, people lighting homeless people on fire, the ice cream man coming and killing people, Halloween door knockers, and the Halloween people giving out candy, filling it full of nails and razor blades. Crazy, dark things are happening in the city, migrant riots, all these things that are touring around. And in the meantime, his home life is falling apart. His relationship with his son and his wife are in full collapse, and he's trying to solve these crimes, all with the help of this metaphysical alien that lives in his head. And this turns into these conflicts that are not directly physical action, but they're really the manifestations of the feelings and emotions of the people in town and who are struggling in the city. Breathtaking storytelling with absolutely incredible art. Tower Dungeon. What a tremendous manga. This one touched me. It's lived in my head and I can't escape it. I've read all 3 of the English language volumes of this. Obviously it was produced in Japanese earlier, but this has now just come to the States this year. We're 3 volumes in, and it's the tale of a young guy named Yava, who is a poor boy living in a farm who has tremendous strength and can kind of lift and carry anything. And he goes off to help rescue the princess who's been captured. She has been stolen by the necromancer, and he's taken her to the dungeon tower, which is this, imagine 1, 2, 3 kilometer tall building on the edge of a mountain. You have to get to it, and they're going up the different levels, and there's over 100 levels, and on level 100 is where the princess is. So it feels a little bit like progression RPG, but it's more nuanced and has more depth than that. And in some ways, it's nice to help you track the journey that they're taking. He starts out as with the royal guard, then there's treachery, then there's problems happening with war, and the council decides to send the royal guard away, so it's just him and 2 others that are left to try and get there to the top of the tower and rescue the princess, who happens to be a dracomorph. And there's an interesting world where these dragons that can turn to humans and vice versa. The creator of this, Tsutomu Mihi, I hope I'm saying that right, actually went to architectural school, and so there's this incredible design to the building and the floors. None of it is designed or him just taking a photograph and then tracing over it. It's all done by hand, all traditionally done. So it has a weight and feeling to it. Here's the princess and our young Yava character, who is also starting to have these feelings for this woman who is with him. She's a necromancer. She is a pyromancer, and they get these rings where they share thoughts, but he doesn't know that's what's being shared, and she's finding all these things out about him. Lots of nuanced drama, action, and this incredible intrigue. Can't recommend this one enough. Precious metal here. Now, Darcy Van Polgeest and Ian Bertram are the masterminds behind this, with Matt Hollingsworth on color, and he must be noted because the color is so profound. This is set in the world of Little Bird, which, if you hadn't read it, it was their previous work, and essentially deals with this character, the Sarge, and he is somewhat of a Han Solo type. He's a smuggler. He moves goods around the galaxy, and the galaxy is controlled by this very oppressive government that's sort of pseudo Dark Ages Catholic Church / oppressive government. And he is being asked to smuggle this young boy who is this great destined prophecy surrounding him, and he can't turn the boy over. He feels too bad. He keeps the boy on his ship, and it sends him off on this incredible quest. But look at these pages by Ian. There's just nothing like it. This speaks of Mobius, of Juan Jimenez, with Matt Hollingsworth's colors that are just unbelievable. I haven't seen a book like this with this level of art in American comics, and I don't know how long. This intends to be, I think, one of the greats, and Ian Bertram is unlike any other, soon to become one of the great American comic book artists. This story is moving and compelling and full of all kinds of great iconography and symbolism through both the Catholic Church and the oppression of the government. And the Catholic Church is awesome, but in this fantasy world, some of its mixture with this sort of pseudo religion that has become fascism. It's wild and interesting. Bug Wars here by Jason Aaron and Mahmoud Assar. I love this. It takes me back to early Jason Aaron, full of grit and language and sexuality and struggle and fighting. He deals with this teenage boy whose dad is an entomologist, and his dad dies, and they're depressed. It's him and his brother and his mom, and he discovers this amulet that turns him into the size of a bug. And then he's in the backyard, and he's now caught up in all the political and struggles of the insects who live there, which is really a metaphor for this fantasy world, right? These bugs have different sort of fantasy powers, and there's all this structure to their world. And this young boy who's prophesied to be there, and his father who left this great legacy, and there's a big war, and they want to kill his older brother because he's always mowing and destroying the yard and killing lots of insects. So it's this great fantasy story with this young prophetic hero who doesn't quite know who to be. Really moving and very unsuspecting. Last and certainly not least, Helen of Wyndhorn. Bilquis Everly and Tom King deliver one of the most moving and beautiful comic books I've read in years. This is it. I mean, she won the Eisner not because she doesn't know what she's doing. She is a breathtaking artist who painted this incredible fantasy world. The story deals with Helen, who is a teenage girl who is struggling with alcoholism. Her father was this novelist who sort of toured around and spent all their money, and she was running around with him, and she's full of all these emotional problems and feelings of loss, and her father has died, and she's now trying to connect with her grandfather who summoned her to live with him in his big palace. So happens though that his father disappears into all these fantasy worlds where he's actually this great king and warrior. Happens to be the fantasy world her father was always writing about in his pulp novels, and it's come to life. And so she's moving between the real world and the fantasy world, trying to deal with her relationship with her grandfather and all the unaccounted for feelings with her sad father. It's a coming of age story. It's an addiction recovery story. It is a fantasy and fiction full of adventure. It's moving. It was incredible. These books are the reasons why you read comic books. Any one of these, if you pick these up, it will blow your mind and you'll be happy with what you did that weekend.